Sorry about that. So we'll get started, and I have a program, run a show, but we're gonna let it go organically, and we want the members to chime in when they can, and if they can, and you guys can come in and out. The way Zach initially had it planned is that all of the speakers don't need to be here the entire time, okay? Because I know you guys are busy and what have you. Howard, you're here for the whole time, I think I'm locking you in. But thank you for showing up and being our first journey. It's a big deal, and we hope that they continue because we think they're important. We know they are. So I am going to kick it off with the intros to everyone, and I hope that I don't get the titles wrong. I've researched each one of you. Know Howard already, but so just correct me if I'm incorrect in your titles, guys. I have no pride in it. I want them correct when I'm talking about them. And also the bios went out, I think, yesterday. So first we have Howard Altman with Military Times, and I think I have you correct, as he was actually the MVJ founding board member. He's now on the board of advisors, correct? And
I guess.
Yeah. Hey, it's less work, dude. You just have to show up to these cool things. And now Military Times managing editor, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Yes. All right. And we have quite a bio and even a Wikipedia, but award-winning editor and reporter who was previously in Tampa, which is where I met Howard. Tampa Bay Times, and I think you were at Tampa Tribune as well, correct?
Before they put it out of its misery, yes.
Okay, and then you covered, looks like CENTCOM and SOCOM, my old stomping grounds, which I was on a panel today. I was like, that was interesting. And other special ops initiatives, correct?
I covered special ops, yeah.
Yeah, I know you did work for us even. So his bio is extensive and impressive, I might say. So next we have, and I'm not gonna do it justice, which is why we publish the bios, to make sure that y'all can read them and get through them. But next we have Todd, and I think Todd will be coming on later, and I'm trying to keep, hold on, people are waiting. I got to do this at the same time. Sorry, guys. There's 3 people coming in.
Oh,
okay, got it. 3 more people. So next we have Todd South, and if I mispronounce names, just correct me. What I pulled off of Military Times and in my research is combat reporter, but I think he is a writer, according to Howard. Howard knows because he works with him, and I wish he was here because Todd could correct me. He is a Marine Corps veteran. I don't think that Marines say former or ex. I could be wrong. My brother's a Marine. Active duty enlisted from 98 to 2003, served in OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom, in the 2003 invasion, has a Bachelor's of Arts in Journalism from University of Georgia and a MFA nonfiction writing from Goucher College. He's a working journalist, primarily local news with some veterans military subbeats before joining Military Times in 2017. And he has written about crime, courts, government, and military for multiple publications since 2004. And something that is pretty impressive is he was named 2014 Pulitzer finalist for co-written project on witness intimidation, which he did not provide in his bio. I found that. Modest guy. So Todd hopefully will be joining us in a bit. And then we have Kyle Rempfer. Is that how you spell or you pronounce it? Did I do okay? Great. Army Times staff reporter. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. Howard was schooling me on some of these things. So joined in 2017. Worked prior to working in journalism. This one's interesting. I've worked with several CCTs and JPaqs on the support app side, of course. So I thought that was interesting, deploying JPaq to Afghanistan, southeastern Afghanistan, and working out of a strike cell in Baghdad, Iraq. I included in his bio several of the works that he's done. And then we have Sun Devil. I'll always remember that. Phil Athey. Is that correct?
Athey.
Athey. Okay, long A. Has longer hair now, but you look the same, but you have the longer hair. I like it. So Marine Corps Times reporter, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Served in the Marine Corps for 4 years as an, what is it? How do you say it? You guys have your own ways. 0811? No?
Yeah, 0811 cannoneer.
Cannoneer. Yeah, okay, that sounds fun, interesting. So you pursued a career in journalism as a continuation of your service, which I see that a lot. I think that's awesome. And a lot of veterans find ways to give back. So I'm not surprised. My favorite, of course, is that he's an Arizona State Sun Devil. I too am an Arizona State Sun Devil, and my son is a 3rd generation Sun Devil. So nobody cares, but I do. Phil worked for the Cronkite News, DC borough, and interned with Arizona Republic, which is very familiar. Moved to DC after graduating and was a fellow for E&A News, breaking stories about the Department of Defense, the response on climate change, interesting, and has a role as a Marine Corps reporter for the Marine Corps Times. So that's our 4 speakers for tonight. And I want to make sure I'm staying on schedule for you guys because I'm the boring part. Then the interesting part is coming up. And we're going to start with Howard. I'd like to go with Todd after that if he's here. If not, then we're going to go to Kyle and then we'll go to Phil. We're going to leave plenty of time for the members to chime in because we do want to hear from you. It's for the members. And we want this to, we want to also understand how we can make it better. Because like I said, this is the first one. So we will be giving lots of time for interaction. So Howard, like I said, is an MVJ, Military Veterans in Journalism founding board member. And we're going to kick off because he has the most experience with us and probably in his career as well. So,
And the longest in the tooth.
yeah. So is that what it, okay, you said that, I didn't say that. So tell us how, just kind of like to kick it off, but give us a little background and help, just how did you end up at Military Times? You've been all over doing stuff.
Sure, well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to condense it. It's been 30 plus years. I've been doing this since I was in high school. I worked for a local radio station, a college radio station, local college newspaper as a kid. Went to college, started out in the Boston, Massachusetts area, spent some time there until I got fired. Then I went to New Haven, and then I went to Philadelphia, then I went to upstate New York, and I worked my way south to Tampa, worked at Tampa Tribune. I was an editor, spent a lot of my career as an editor, but there were so many layoffs at the Tampa Tribune that they said, well, your team is gone, so we're gonna make you a reporter. And I said, well, I don't want to listen to stupid editor ideas. So I said, let me cover the military. There's nobody doing it. Tampa, as you well know, is really a great place to cover. You've got CENTCOM, SOCOM, MARCENT, SOCCENT, JCSE, which is fascinating stuff, 2 Air Force wings, and then you've got 2 of the busiest VA hospitals in town and one of the busiest VA claim centers. So there's plenty of stuff to do. I had an audience of really, there's 200,000 veterans in the 3-county area that weren't really being serviced by the news. And they said, look, we should really, these are people who really are interested in this stuff. And then they, add their families, and it's a really dedicated readership. So I did that, and, I do kind of a 3rd or 4th chapter of my career. I was 50 when I started covering the military full time. It's been fun. And I was at the Tampa Bay Times and enjoying that. And then Aaron Meadow, one of our colleagues, put out a tweet saying, hey, we're looking for managing editor at Military Times. And I was like, yeah, I'm a little concerned about things down here in Tampa. And I applied, and here I am. It's been just about 2 years almost. It's really interesting, much broader swath of military coverage. In Tampa is much more garrison stuff. Air Force focus as well as on what was going on at CENTCOM and SOCOM. Now it's everything from PCS season problems to things that are affecting military families directly to operational things. And I work with some really talented people like these guys here, and so it's really kind of exciting.
That's great. Thanks. What about like, I guess I would want to understand, I work mostly with special ops transitioning service members, but what comes up a lot is organizational structure and culture, both of them, two separate things. I think that sometimes service members kind of struggle transitioning from what they're used to in the military to a civilian gig. Can you talk about military times, or just military times, but also just in general?
I mean, I can't really speak to what it's like to transition out of the military, having never been in the military. So I know it only by covering things and these guys. So the culture is, we have 4 service publications cover each of the services. These guys work for the service publications, and that's really kind of the meat of our operation. I'll let them speak to what they cover. We also have partners at Defense News, and they have a number of publications. We're part of a larger organization called Sightline Media. And yes, there's a strong commitment to having veterans on board, and we happen to have several who are not only veterans, they're excellent journalists. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. These folks, they know how to tell stories, they know how to report stories, write the stories, and also they have the experience of having done it. So it's kind of unique. I mean, I've covered murders, I've covered fires, I've never killed anybody in a murder, I've never burned anything down. So you don't see a lot of necessarily firefighters or police officers trying to segue into journalism. But I think there's my experience has been there's been a lot of veterans who are, and it's how I kind of met Zach down in Tampa when he was working with Scotty Neal and those guys. He's a fascinating guy in his own right. So in terms of our culture, it's been a challenge not working all in the same newsroom. We're dispersed now. We're working out of our homes. We have a WeWork space in Arlington. I don't know. Have you guys been to the WeWork space? I've been once or twice. It's not the same thing. It's, if you've ever been to a newsroom, it's kind of raucous and fun and, camaraderie, drive-by idea sharing, and it's kind of a lot of fun. I miss that. So, and we try to have a very collegial, working relationship. It's not trying to be top heavy. As an editor, I always try to remember it's the writer's story, not mine. And having had the experience of having editors who have gone in and rewritten my stories and gotten many, many facts wrong, I try to run by, any big changes I make and headlines and anything like that with these guys, so that I'm not adding errors, which is just an awful thing for writers.
Okay, so obviously military times it would make sense that more veterans would be in the newsroom, right? Compared to other media outlets, newsrooms, what have you. So I understand that. I'm not a journalist, I'm a business person. So that makes sense. But I guess how does it, and I'm going to ask each of the speakers, from where you sit, can you give advice or even talk about, for one, what's the path to your position? If someone were to say, I want to be just like Howard,
Then I say seek some help.
And hair and all, everything. It's all good stuff.
Sure.
And also, I'm not sure how the hiring process goes at military times. Sometimes you have a hiring manager within HR, of course, but sometimes it's not. It's a senior person. Can you explain how that is handled at military times?
Sure. There's a couple of questions there. I'll start with the last one. We have a group of editors. Andrew Tillman is my boss. He's the executive editor. And then we have, right now it's 2 service publication editors, Kent Miller and Angie Scott. And so if there's a position open, depends on, who's, like we just hired somebody for Air Force Times. And so Kent would have been, the point person on that, work with Andrew. I kind of weigh in from, my level of experience and kind of have conversations. And then they talk to the reporters. It's got to, it's going to be copacetic. The reporters are the ones who have to work with the editors. And if they don't like the candidate, it's not going to work out. So why, go down a road that's not going to, work out. So we have discussions with them. We look at their resume, try to vet it a little bit, find out what their interests are, let them know what is a publication. We are geared towards telling stories of direct interest to troops, veterans, and their families. We don't do a lot of foreign policy, even though it's a little bit of my background. We do stuff that really matters to the troops. So make sure that they're on board with that. Make sure they're on board. We've just gotten back to a print product, a monthly print product. Most of our work is online, and so make sure that they're good with all those elements. And when we look for writers, kind of expand our network and reach out to folks and try to find someone who's going to fit.
Awesome, thanks. I think part of it, and I could be wrong, but I've been around Russell and Zach and just the entire team for long enough, years, that it seems the common theme is that service members may not have had the opportunity to go to journalism school to build their network, right? So they come out of the military, they don't have the network that others do, going to the college and all the stuff, possibly. And that's why military veterans in journalism was actually established just 24 months ago or 23 months ago. So how do you recommend these new folks go about networking? Is it through MVJ? Do you have any advice for the folks?
It's a little harder now that, we're in this COVID world where you can't go out.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the networking I did was at bars, places like the Bad Monkey in Tampa.
Oh, Bad Monkey with Scotty and the fellas.
Yeah, so
I've been many times.
So, but that, we don't have that right now. I could go to journalism school. I just, I would actually turn it over to my colleagues because they'll know better, how they actually, did it. First of all, they started out with your talented people, talented journalists, and that's kind of the main thing. If there weren't talented journalists, that wouldn't have gotten this far.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, so we talked about interviewing and applying and different things like that. And the pandemic, it is a shame that the interaction, the camaraderie is not there. Like you don't have it as much because that's part of, the culture. Do you guys have any kind of insight on when possibly things might go to, back to something that would look normal, I guess, previously, or is it just indefinite? That's okay. That's
no insight as to whether we're going to have an office again, or, and again, talk to these guys about how they like it or don't like it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I would like to open it up for questions for Howard just for a few minutes in between speakers. So if you have questions, just chime in, or we can definitely, hold on, I'm trying to manage this. What are some of the things that make editors uninterested in candidates? This is coming from Will.
One of the things I look at, I try to see if there's any what level of experience you have. And I always ask for writing samples. If you don't have writing samples, I'll send a test. What I'll often do is take a press conference and see what you can do with it. Because this is a high level of journalism. These guys are producing some amazing stuff on a regular basis. So it's not really a beginner job. So I look to see what somebody can do. I'll, vet their background a little bit, talk to some folks that I know. I'll look for things in their copy that, I see potential for growth, somebody who can, I think, do something, that looks like it's a possibility. So I kind of, those are the things that I look at as an editor. If you haven't had any writing experience, it's tougher because again, this is not an entry level position. We do have an internship program. I think Joseph is familiar with that. It's one of our next ones coming up. And it's been really tremendous. We've had some great people through this organization. And they do, some really great job. I talked to Davis Winky and Jared, I believe is a graduate. And so is Harm Van Huygen, I believe, too. And they're doing, some amazing work as well. So, and again, they've had some experience. If you haven't had experience yet, I would suggest writing as much as you can. Go to your local newspaper, volunteer. If it's something you want to get into, build up your clip file, to the point where and seek out interns. We'll talk more about it later. We do have a pretty good program.
Awesome. A couple more questions. One from Alex Lucas, veteran and earning his master's degree in broadcast journalism and public affairs. Looking for an internship. How could I apply and become selected? So I guess we'll touch on it, but if you have anything to add on internships.
I'll give you my email address. It's haltman@militarytimes.com.
I'll make sure that everybody on the line
and
has
what I'm
the
looking for is
contact
a resume. If you have any writing samples, please send them on. And that's kind of the sort of the main thing. Well, also, it's not just we have visual journalism opportunities. We have social media journalism opportunities as well. It's an important part of what we do. So it's not just reporting.
Awesome. Thank you. Terry Lloyd, where do you see, and I was actually going to ask this question, where do you see freelancers in the military journalism space?
I mean, it depends. It's really difficult right now. We don't have a freelance budget. So it's kind of difficult. We might do it on a story by story basis. I've done that before with certain, people. But it's really tough. I think you'd have to go from different organizations. It's a tough way to make a living. You have to have some connections with editors. I would suggest if you have the ability to go to some of the journalism conferences, IRE, I don't know if the Association of Alternative News Weeklies is still doing it. Some of the others, MVJ, Association of Hispanic Journalists, Asian Journalists, all kinds of different journalism organizations that are out there that it's a good way to network and to meet some editors. Send your stuff out. I mean, if you're really interested, you have some clips, take a look at some of the publications you're interested in and go to the masthead, find an editor. And, the squeaky wheel does get, the grease, to be honest. I've had people who over the years that I've hired, they were quite, emphatic about trying, and don't be a pain, but, don't be shy either.
Oh, it's Goldilocks.
Not business for shy people.
Wills. Okay. So I guess too, Terry, just to let you know, tomorrow we're having another, it's not a journey, so to speak, but we are having another webinar, and then there will be a follow-on. You'll see them coming out on entrepreneurism, and it really touches on freelance journalism and what have you. So you might want to dial into those. But IRE, we just had them on last week. I believe it was last week. But yeah, if there's anything we can do, and I'll send out contact information, just reach out to us.
Well, thank you both.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions for Howard? We might end up having more later, and you can always follow up. I will make sure that the questions get answered for y'all. All right. Well, we are heading on over to Todd's not here quite yet, I don't think, and hopefully I don't have him in some waiting room that I don't know how to manage. Next is Kyle. And let me click over. I have so many things open, but I think I read Kyle's. Didn't I read all the bios. So I'm not gonna repeat myself because people are gonna get sick and tired of hearing me talk. So I'm gonna turn it over to Kyle, and really we want to, on each of the positions that are, y'all coming in and talking about, it's kind of the same thing, but where you stand and where you come from. Howard obviously was not a military veteran, but he brings a lot to the table. And Kyle and Phil are veterans that have made the transition and built their careers. So if you can give us a little bit of even like, a little of your journey to kick it off, then we can go from there.
Sure. So I got out of the Air Force in 2015 timeframe and started going to college. Originally, I went to University of Maryland, which is right in the DC area, if you guys are familiar with it. And I wanted to work I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I kind of had a vague idea that I wanted to work in politics or something to do with federal government, just kind of a broad conception like that. And so I picked Maryland because it was a public school just in the area. I did an internship on the Hill with a senator who was on all the committees I was interested in, especially the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And so I liked the subject matter of it, but I think something I picked up pretty quickly, most of the people that I think work on the Hill, and maybe some people disagree with this, but I think you have to be a little bit of a true believer in the individual that you work for, unless you're a professional staff member for a committee or something like that. And so I didn't really see myself ever working for a senator or a congressman in exactly that way. But I really did there was these people kind of running through the halls of Congress in between hearings, and they were very annoying, and all the senator staffers hated them, and they were reporters. And so I was I kind of like what they're doing. They're a little bit as far as I think jobs are that are I don't want to say anti-authoritarian or anything or anti-authority, but they just seemed like they dug into things, and they kind of seemed a little bit aggressive, adversarial journalism kind of thing. It was interesting to me. And so I also kind of got the advice that if you want to really develop your writing skills, you should write for a newspaper or a student newspaper around that time. So I started writing for my school newspaper, first doing op-eds. I pretty quickly realized I don't really have much opinions on things, at least not well-defined opinions. So I wanted to move over into news. I started doing that. I did an internship at NBC Washington, which is a part of NBC, but it's their local television station for Washington. And I don't really like cable news, and I didn't really, like broadcast news. And it was just kind of not really up my alley as far as the material that we were covering there. But it did kind of scratch the itch a little bit more. And I got an internship with Military Times, and that was in the summer of 2017. And, thankfully, I think a lot of luck happened in that there was an opening for an early bird editor, which is one of kind of our entry level positions here. And so I was lucky enough to slip into that role. And from there, I've been really lucky just with people like Howard and then just other reporters that I've worked under here, a lot of expertise at this publication when it comes to just the sort of toolkit you need to be a reporter, whether it's, doing FOIA requests or doing just searching through court records, or just knowing how to track down sources and protect a source if you need to, things like that I've learned from all these guys here. And there's a lot of great experience here, and I've been honestly really lucky to just kind of learn from them and glean from them. And so that's what I've been doing for the past almost coming up on 4 years now. So
awesome. I guess my question's not about me, but I've dealt with hundreds, thousands maybe, of transitioning service members. And I have an opinion on why a service member would be great for as a journalist. What do you, as a veteran and a journalist, what do you see that are those traits, those core traits that just make you stand out and you're able to adapt and overcome and do the things that you need to do, maybe better than others?
Well, I will say that I think, veterans can be really good journalists. I think mainly because, it's one of the few career fields, Howard mentioned, you don't really see cops getting into crime beat reporting, and you don't see like, former congressmen getting into politics reporting unless they're like, a talking head on CNN or something like that. But I think the reason why a lot of veterans do it is because you usually serve like a few enlistments, and you kind of do it after high school, and maybe you only do one enlistment, maybe you do multiples, but then you're kind of looking for, it's just a natural thing in our society to look for like the next life almost. And I think part of it is because the military is like a separate life. But I guess some of the skills that really do translate well from being in the military to being in journalism is maybe working like kind of weird hours. I mean, in the military, you kind of, in the military, you have to kind of work a lot of, just strange hours. Everyone has kind of different jobs, but I think everyone in the military has an experience working a little bit of squirrely schedules. And similar in journalism, you kind of have to be prepared to do some, not working a regular 9-to-5 job. There's a lot of changing up to it. And so I think, a lot of veterans do come out with a lot of like ability to handle kind of adverse work conditions and just like weird work conditions. And so I think that applies pretty well.
Awesome. That's great. That's kind of what I saw. And I also saw that, I noticed, my observation, I guess, is that many, not all, I wouldn't do that big broad strokes, is that they seem to be able to really get into things and just do them. I'm sure it doesn't happen for all of them, but like, I'm just going to go in and get this done, kind of thing. And so I just wanted to see if there was some kind of, reconciliation of my thoughts with yours and, Phil's too. So thanks for that. So let me go back down here. I want to make sure that what do you recommend? It sounds like you went to college after you got out of the military, correct? How hard was that?
For me, it wasn't too bad. I got out of the military at about 22, so I wasn't really that far removed from the college age group. And honestly, I took it like a commuter. I wasn't like living in the dorms or anything like that. I just drove to campus every day. So it wasn't like a huge transition for me. I think for a lot of other people, especially if you stayed in 8, 10, 12 years, it gets a little shocking probably going back. But for me, it wasn't too bad.
So what advice, I think a lot of folks, and we'll hear from the real deal after I stop, but Zach is making me go down this list, or I would just not do it at all because I just want to hear you guys. But what do you think is the best advice, or as you've learned how, and you've transitioned, you got your jobs and different things, like applying, the interviewing, different things like do's and don'ts. Definitely never say this, because I've heard guys say stuff that I'm like, what in the hell did you just say? Why would you do that? So, or that was great, what's your advice on that topic? Interviewing and resumes and different things like that.
I guess as far as like resumes and, maybe for journalism, I think highlighting just work you've done and like clips that you've written, especially like unique, original reporting that you've done, is probably helpful. I think that when it comes to, just looking for work and kind of getting like a start, like maybe it's helpful to look at like trade publications, I think like Military Times, because I think that they're kind of plentiful, and I think it's a really good way to jump into like a beat and become, insofar as much as you can be an expert as a journalist on a beat, I think you can really become someone who knows a lot about that beat. Here at Military Times, obviously the Pentagon, even more specifically for me, like the Department of the Army, Phil, the Marine Corps. So I think like looking at trade publications, and I know Phil started out working for, I think it was E&E News, like just an energy and environment, almost like a trade, I think it is a trade publication. So I think being open to kind of those opportunities, maybe publications you haven't read before, but just like things that are a little bit more, maybe different than what you first hoped for when you started out. And then also just like, as far as like interviewing and like getting ready for like an interview and getting ready for an application, just read through the website, read through the homepage. What is the stuff that they prioritize? What are the reporters that are on that publication writing about daily? What's their kind of trajectory? I think watching that is probably helpful.
Any absolute like caveats, don't do that, not in this industry, it's probably a bad idea? Anything like that you can think of? Any one of you guys too?
I can't think of anything. I don't know. Do you guys have anything?
I think Howard's
Uh,
gonna answer.
yeah.
No?
Don't show up drunk. That's probably a good thing.
Don't show up drunk?
Yeah,
That's a really
that's
positive thing.
That's probably a good one. Don't do that.
I'll put that in the notes.
Yeah.
Until you get the job, and then you can.
Then you can do whatever. All right.
There's
And
not
then
as much drinking in journalism as there used to be when I got in.
oh man, look at him. Look at him. He's just right up in our grill too with it. All right, awesome. Do we have any questions from the members? I'm kind of checking this out. I'm not a multitasker. I say that. I think it's something from the 90s that they made up. I'd like to think that anyway. So, all right. And we can take more as time goes on and you think of stuff. But I guess now we can transition over to Phil. I think I covered everything. I didn't cover, hold tight. I did not cover your thoughts on the pandemic and how it's impacted the original work, like the organizational culture and structure. I didn't talk about that. You don't have to go in real detail, but I think it's fair to say, how has it impacted you? What about morale? I don't think we really talked, well, I guess you talked about it a little bit, Howard, but how's it impact morale and just the structure and just
I
culture?
mean, personally, I like being in a newsroom. I like everything, the noise, the tumult, even yelling at editors, pizza, election night pizza, all kind, just the camaraderie.
Just the
And
friendships.
this is something, you can, newsroom's the kind of place where you can tell kind of sick, gallows humor jokes that only people who deal with all this stuff that we deal with can really appreciate, which is why I tend to hang out with journalists and my friends who are, in the military, because you can understand kind of, we see things that other people don't. And just be able to bounce ideas off each other. I try to communicate with the writers and other editors to make sure that we're all staying in touch. I mean, there's so many times when you'd have great ideas just by having a conversation, just a natural conversation in a proximity. You start shooting the crap, and then you develop a great idea. So that's a change. I'll leave it to my colleagues to talk about how they feel.
Kyle?
With the pandemic, I mean, yeah, I'd echo that same sentiment. I definitely appreciate the newsroom environment. I didn't really, I think, know how much I appreciated it until I left. We haven't been back there, and it's a little bit just, anyone I think working from home probably feels a little bit out of their mind at this point. But just in general, I guess I would say that, and Howard can probably speak to this a little better than me, but like it seems like journalism has changed so much over the past 20 years, and the changes aren't going to stop in the near term. So if you come into this career field and you want to make it like, your life career, then probably expect there's going to be a lot of significant turmoil, because I don't think any company has really figured out exactly the kind of business model to support information gathering, especially like local news and things like that are really important, but it's tough to monetize. And I don't think any business has really, made the recipe yet.
But Todd, this is where veterans really, it's like we adapt and overcome. I mean, we have to be able to do that. And so this is a new environment. We're going to make it work. Yeah. That's just, it's a sandwich of merit that we've all been given. So just got to take a bite and, move on.
Keep on going. All right. And I'm not ignoring Phil. I just want to make sure that I give Phil his entire time, because I want to hear from him. But we also want to make sure, I got a couple questions come in. So I want to make sure I touch on those. Will says, I'm an older transitioning veteran and he's concerned that maybe some of his military experience overshadows his journalism experience. That totally makes sense. And on his resume, do you have any advice on how to balance this on a resume? I've actually had that, not exactly the same situation, but I'm like, I'm just going to leave that experience off. So he's former Marine Corps intelligence major, served 11 years.
I mean, as an editor, as a hiring manager, the resume is less important than the writing. You know, and having some familiarity with the military, I can sort of translate, you know, your MOS or for specialty code or whatever, and your experience, I'll have an idea. If you're dealing with, you know, intelligence, well, that means I know that you can A, gather information, and then B, turn information into, you know, actionable intelligence, which is essentially what a news product is. It's, you know, if you can, you know, write well enough to be able to have a, you know, some commander of the chain understand what you're talking about, well, then, you know, that's a good thing. Can you do it in a journalistic form? Well, that's the trick. So I'm looking more for your writing and reporting skills than your resume. I think that most, you know, editors are similar. We're less formal industry than, say, if you're in the insurance industry, where, you know, you got to fit little cogs and, you know, because we're just kind of all nuts basically, and you have to understand that you need you know, certain levels of personality and talent that may not, you know, fit into a resume. That sort of
So what you're saying is to go for it.
go for it. Don't
Go
let-
ahead. I'm sorry, Will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give some little bit of background too. So one of the challenges I find is I apply for a lot of internships. I'll get interviews. We get to the interview stage and they find out that, you know, I'm a graduate student studying creative writing, and they're like, why are you applying for this journalism internship? You know, and it seems like there's like sort of a disconnect where they think, well, you know, hey, you probably should go get a job. You know, I had this told to me a couple of times where they're like, you know, you should find a job maybe where, you know, someone will pay to like write essays or you know, to write on something else. And I'm like, you know, I don't have experience, right? So I'm not even qualified. I don't have that specific experience. I'm not qualified for a lot of those places, and it's
I would
a weird,
sort
awkward
of
space. To be in
try not to
sometimes.
pay attention to the naysayers. After I got out of college, I applied to an AP editor, took a look at my stuff and said, well, you should really consider another field of endeavor. I'm still here. That was many years ago. I guarantee that she's not. So don't let the naysayers get you down, and don't, you know, think positive, think, you know, find an objective and take that objective, and, you know, again, use the skills that you learn in the military. It really pays off, and you know, as long as you have the fundamentals, you know, if you have the skills that, you know, we can use, you know.
Do you think the networking will help with that as well? I mean,
Yeah, I'm a networking kind of guy. I'm an old school gumshoe reporter that, you know, gets a lot of my stuff from, you know, hanging out with Scotty and the boys, you know.
oh
Bad money.
goodness, and a bad reputation if you're with
Yeah.
them. Okay, great.
So, and again, you know, I would listen to my, I would talk to Phil and maybe go back to some of the questions, and, you know, get their experiences, and we'll you know, kind of go over this stuff. Happy to talk.
Yeah, I have some ideas too, Will. I'm gonna follow up with you after this, but I'll make sure that I circle back with you. Question for, if that's okay with you. We didn't totally answer it, but I think there's some opportunity within the network that would benefit. The next question is from Alex Kyle. Are you looked at or treated differently from non-military talent in the newsroom?
I don't think so. And honestly, like, you know, even though I think the distinction between veteran and non-veteran in the newsroom is fairly, you know, muted. There's like people like, you know, for instance, Howard, you know, he never served in the military, but he's, you know, worked in Afghanistan. He's reported from Afghanistan. He's reported on the military for such a long time that I feel like, you know, essentially he is stamped with that culture. You know, correct me if I'm wrong if you feel differently, but that's the way I feel when I look at you. I mean, you know, same thing with like Jeff Zazulowicz. He's our really good Navy Times reporter. He worked for Stars and Stripes for, I think, like a long time. And same with, you know, Andrew Tillman. He's another reporter who's covered this for so long that essentially I don't really see much of a distinction. So I know for me, like, I don't really see that. And I don't know if, you know, beyond that, you know, I don't see any distinction, to be honest.
Do you think it's because you're at Military Times, or do you think that it's just?
That's probably a big part of it, actually. I will say that, my experience obviously is so constrained, but like, Phil has worked at civilian news outlets, so maybe he can speak a little bit more to that. Same with Todd, when he jumps on here, he has a long career of working at local publications and probably has far different experience.
All right, awesome. And remember, this isn't the end of this. You guys are seeing the people that, that you can connect with through MVJ, and we're going to make sure that happens. Even if Todd, like something came up and he doesn't jump on, we're going to make sure that happens. Jeremy, I want to make sure that we cover him. He too, similar situation as Will, mid-30s. He's like a lot of folks, like, hey, it's about cash flow. By the time you're in your mid-30s, you got a house and you got 2.5 kids and a dog and a half, and you can't, you need the cash flow. So he's thinking like, I can't take an unpaid internship or an entry-level spot, obviously because of cash flow. And as a result, to make the transition, I need a freelance on the side, which we're going to cover freelance soon. I think that you might be interested in that. And we have contacts in the like addressing it and approaching it in an entrepreneurial pursuit. He says, I need to take freelance or something part-time on the side. What trade publications would you recommend, or even part-time opportunities in journalism? Anybody want to chime in on that?
I would suggest there's journalism jobs. There's a couple of publications and websites that have job ads. So check those out. Sometimes they're freelancers. Sometimes there's opportunities to work downrange, and if you're in the right place at the right time. You could work out with an editor. It's a tough thing. Insurance is an issue whenever I'm overseas. I've got to get insurance and all that, stuff. So that's, it's a little bit of a challenge. It takes a lot of more networking, and that would expand beyond just the military. I would look at various other publications. I also do cyber security for the financial industry as a freelancer. So there's all kinds. If you have a particular specialty that you've had, I would check out some of the trade publications for that, and you might find opportunities there.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right, I think that was our last comment, and I'm keeping track of these because I have some ideas on contacts on some of this stuff that may not, like, if I don't know, might know somebody that knows also. So next we're going to hit up the Sun Devil, Phil. I'm never going to let it go, Phil. It's just all I know now. All right, so it's the same type of things. Is Phil still on, or did he just hang up and give up? Oh, there he is. All right, awesome. All right, so same type of thing, just you're in a different position, you come in with different experience. So just kind of talk to us about a day in the life of your gig with the Marine Corps Times.
Yeah. So, kind of start from the beginning, I guess. So I'm, a little bit older. I got out in 2015 as well. But I was a little bit older when I joined the military. So I was, I think 25 when I got out of the military. So I was, 27, nearing 30 when I was graduating from college. And, I knew journalism was what I wanted to do before I got out of the Marine Corps. So I focused in on ASU because they had, one of the better journalism schools that I could actually get into. And, they kind of set it up so that you have a lot of internship opportunities. Even within the school themselves, I spent a semester covering Congress and got credit for it, just working for the school. That's just part of their program, but not selling them super much. But yeah, so I just, got a lot of experiences with them. And then also to quickly answer the one question about, does being in the military kind of make a difference, being a veteran make a difference in your day-to-day life? Like I said, Military Times, it definitely doesn't. I think working for some of the more normal non-military related publications, I think the only time it really came up was when I was graduating from school. I had a interview for a paid internship at NPR. And, interview was going great. At the end, they were like, hey, so, if we hired you, what type of beat would you like to cover? And I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was probably something, politics related. And they were like, oh, we thought you'd be good for the defense beat over there. And I was just like, oh, I mean, sure, it was a interview, so I kind of scrambled and I was like, oh yeah, I could definitely do that. But I mean, I had no real plans on covering the military, honestly, when I got into journalism. I just kind of, looked into it. But yeah, I mean, covering the Marine Corps, it's just, it's every day is a little bit different, which is, I think why a lot of us got into, journalism or are attracted to journalism. It's, you're going after different things. You're, covering all kinds of, from, some horrible things like super tragic accidents or, combat deaths to, just normal exercises to acquisition programs to force design changes. It's, you're a little bit all over the place. And I don't think there really is a super typical day covering, I mean, any journalism beat, I would say. Yeah,
So-
I mean, a
so
little bit all over the
what-
place.
I think that it kind of goes for all three of you, and Todd just dialed in, so we're happy about that. But I guess I didn't ask, but I have thought about this several times, like what attracted you all to doing this? It seems like did you do this before in the military? I don't think so. I don't know. Can you talk about that? Now, Phil, you go first and then we can go back to Kyle, but how do you get it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just, as I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I was my last year in, and I knew I was only going to do 4 years. So I was, looking for what was next already, and I just kind of wanted to do a job that like mattered, that actually, had the chance of helping people, had the chance of, doing something semi-important, and kind of, going through a list of things, just centered in on journalism, and then at the same time, I knew I never wanted to be, in front of a camera. So that kind of led me down the print route. Unfortunately, everybody's doing everything nowadays. So, we're a print organization, but we have a weekly TV show that I'm on every so often. So ended up in front of the camera anyways. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what it was. I just wanted to do something that, had a chance of making a difference, as, kind of cliche as that is.
Yeah, it's cliche, but it seems to be what we all, a common theme, which is good. What about you, Kyle?
I think I echo kind of that sentiment about, doing something, moving from the military where you feel like you have a purpose to the civilian world where everything's a little bit more amorphous and, working kind of like a typical 9-to-5, maybe in an office, feels a little bit hollow. This is definitely different. It's a little bit more along the same veins, kind of has a similar culture, I think, in some ways to military service or service in general. I also just really like, being someone who contributes new original information to the public, things that, they're not going to get from other places. I don't know who said it, but like there's a pretty, I assume it's a famous quote about journalism, which is like that it's the first draft of history. You are digging up information, new information. If you're doing your job right, you may not always be getting the first original information, but weekly, monthly, you should be digging up news stories and things that no one else has, reported before. And that's something that I take pride in. I feel like, I'm adding to the slate of public knowledge and helping either Congress people be informed, their staffers, just the general public and voter, maybe, someone working in the Pentagon, who reads, the early bird brief and sees my stories in the morning, and either it's annoying him and, maybe he's freaking out about it, or maybe it's helping inform him. But either way, I feel like, that's an important part, is just contributing information that otherwise would not be released or otherwise would be released with a lot of sprinkles of public affairs jargon.
Right. No, that's good. I actually, if you guys don't mind, actually, these journeys are supposed to be inside the newsroom, so you guys get a little tour, but we had to adapt and overcome too. So now we're in everybody's house. So I wanted to ask if Alex or Will, some of the guys that I think Terry, maybe if you guys want to chime in on what attracted you to, I mean, were you involved in the military as, I guess, you know, in that world, or what attracted you to it after? Same reason or different?
I think for myself, it's I'm a lot like Kyle in the sense that, you know, I'd like to contribute sort of. I really like what he said about being part of that first draft of history. You know, I was a former intelligence officer in the Marine Corps, so a lot of what I did was go out, gather information, right, in support of a commander's decision making. And so I really like looking at stories or new information in a way that's like providing sort of my community or whatever community I'm part of with the sort of actionable intelligence they need, right, to make informed decisions about how they go about their lives. And one of the things that really struck me as I transitioned out of the Marine Corps and into civilian service was that there's like really a lot of things that are happening out there that people aren't always aware of. And so, you know, these journalists have a really like important public duty to keep people informed of like really big things that are happening. And, you know, I work at a small paper right now, doing, you know, a short internship, and, you know, I sit in on a lot of city council meetings. There's stuff that's happening at the local level that people just have no idea about. And it's just through these, you know, the stories that we tell that people stay informed. And I feel like, you know, military times the same way, like what Kyle talked about, like, you know, something like the early bird brief, right, could be, is like seen by so many people, and is impacting sort of the way the world evolves. Anyhow.
Awesome. No, that's good.
yeah.
That I was just wondering, you know, what attracted you guys, what drew you to it. So we'll keep going with, so thank you for that. Phil, we'll keep going with you. Covered, you know, the change in work environment. Do you have any advice for interviewing and those standard things that I've asked? I don't think we've covered that with you. If we have, I'm sorry, but just anything that you can give as advice in the position that you're holding now, or previous positions too, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at something like covering the military specifically, especially most of my experience before I covered the military was covering Congress. And when you're in the halls of Congress, like Kyle was saying, when he was a staffer, you have incredible amount of access. You are chasing down members of Congress every day and asking them questions. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, they might not always answer you, but you have access to run and chase them down, no matter who you are, what publication you're at, whether you're an intern from most, you know, obscure, you know, publication that you know, ever, you know, if you're on Capitol Hill, you have that chance to ask anybody in Congress a question, and most of them will answer because that's just instinct for them. Covering the military, it's a bit different, you know, you're a few layers removed from everyone. I mean, I'm covering the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps spread across, you know, Okinawa, Japan, mainland Japan, Hawaii, California, you know, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. You have, you know, Marines in Europe, Marines in Iraq, Marines in Afghanistan. I mean, I'm in DC. There's some travel opportunities before COVID hit, but, you know, you're limited to how much kind of that in-person stuff. And then even when it comes to the Pentagon, it's still, you're at another's arm, you know, kind of arm's distance away. So it's a lot of scrounging for sources, you know, going on Facebook pages, on Instagram pages, on, you know, Reddit, on everything, and just trying to anywhere where, you know, kind of Marines, you know, gather in whatever way, you know, visually, you know, you just kind of have to be in that space if you're covering the service level. And then it's just, you know, especially now, you know, with COVID, it's, you know, on the official side, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of emails, it's a lot of, you know, really just following up and constantly, you know, trying to reach people digitally, just because it's so easy if a PAO doesn't want to talk to you to just not answer your phone, not answer your email, kind of push you off, and you just have to really be on top of that. And that's kind of one of the difficulties kind of, you know, working through this.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I can, but I'm not a journalist. So just the lack of access that you have now compared, So I was listening to Kyle. He was talking about a Green Beret, and I'm married to a Green Beret, and I've been serving him for a long time. And so it made me think, I went back to my notes. Do you have a case study or a situation that because you did comment that you went into journalism to make an impact again, to serve or what have you? Can you share with us anything like a case or situation that made an impact? Like, just kind of share if you have one.
Was that for me or for Kyle?
It's for you. We're still
Okay.
focused on you,
Got it.
but Kyle
Yeah.
said something that made me think about it, but anybody
Okay.
can comment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a couple stories I have. I wrote one 7 or 8 months ago now. It was like a Marine, she had a difficult pregnancy, and her child was had issues afterwards. So she wasn't able to get within weight standards within the 6 I think it was 9 months at the time that they had. And she ended up getting kicked out at 16 years because she kind of missed that weight standard. And then I wrote a story about it, kind of went into detail, like she medically should have been not on BCP. She should have had whatever chits, whatever. And a few months ago, Marine Corps changed their policy. They extended the amount of time women have to recover from their pregnancy. And I don't know if it's necessarily linked to that story. Supposedly they had been working on that change for 6 months before I even wrote that story. But I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of see a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a change, come from, at least in part, something that you were part of. So that's nice to see. And I also think kind of one of the most difficult stories to write are the ones about death, and that happens more often probably in a service reporter kind of role than it does in a lot of other type of reporting roles. But it talking to specifically talking to the families of people who died, especially when it's not even a combat death, but it's a a training accident death, and it's something that's 100% avoidable. It's horrible, but it's just giving families the opportunity to kind of tell their story and humanize the Marines who died in whatever accident, because they're more than just a name and a rank, and they had a life before. They were kids who were super into video games or working out or whatever, and just kind of being able to bring that kind of to life and tell that story. It's difficult to do, but it's always fulfilling, I guess, when you get it right.
Yeah, worth it. You talk about, I think you were talking about the purpose, or Kyle was, about you have a purpose in the military, and then you're kind of like, I need a purpose again. And I've heard that so many times that for my own situation, the worst thing, my husband is a double above the knee amputee being hit by an improvised explosive device. But the worst thing that happened to him is that he had to find his purpose again. And I hear that so many times. And so I was glad that you mentioned that. And I think I hear that with you too, Phil, and what you're talking about. So I think that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's good. It's good stuff. You guys are purpose-driven people, and it's good to see you find it again in different areas. It's a whole adapt and overcome, and just doing it again, no matter where you're at. So thank you for that. I think I covered most everything with Phil and Kyle and Howard. And now, Todd, I believe, I want to make sure that I catch all these questions too. I think I got everybody, but I think Todd's on now. And Todd, if you are, let's see if he's still here. Hold on a second. There he is. Yeah. Yes, he is. Yay. I want to give him some time to speak too. And then we can wrap it up with the questions and stuff too, but I think we've caught up on all of them. So welcome, Todd. I'm Jen Paquette. I'm a board member of Military Veterans and Journalism. And I went through your impressive bio too when we first kicked it off, but I want to make sure that we cover your view of these things and your feedback and all that good stuff. But because you missed part of it, I want to make sure that I actually repeat these things because the guys have talked about mostly the same thing on each of these things. But can you talk to us about a day in the life of the current position that you hold? I had it as senior, I think it was senior editor, but I think it's writer. And can you
Yeah.
clear that up for us? Because I want to make sure I have it correct.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, let me first of all apologize to everyone. I could make up a big story about working that I actually wrote the wrong time down, and I very much apologize personally for wasting anybody's time. And so if you have to go, don't wait, hold
Perfect.
your breath for me. I'm sorry for being late. But to start out, kind of a day in life, I feel kind of a weird kind of niche position here. I was hired about a little more than 4 years ago when they were kind of plussing up the staff, and I had spent time. I was enlisted Marines, served in the invasion of Iraq, got out, went to journalism, spent 12, 13 years in local reporting, not really military focused. And so when I came here, I'd actually had a lot of cops and corps experience, some local government experience, and a good chunk of enterprise experience. And so our boss, Howard is one of our couple bosses, but another boss, Andrew Tillman, hired me as like kind of an enterprise reporter with mainly a focus on ground forces, just due to my experience and to fill a niche and a gap for the Army and Marine Corps time. So I kind of jockey between the two, and I try to help out and do purple stuff. So niche things with hearings or investigations or reports coming out, crime focused stuff. So mine's a little bit of a hodgepodge. Like I don't have like as clearly defined as a beat as some of the other reporters here, and definitely not like with the senior writers who are just taking a fire hose of information on a particular service and becoming supreme experts in that, which Phil and Kyle definitely are. So I'm always kind of playing a little bit of utility player, grabbing things that kind of fall through the cracks or looking for new angles on things, always pushing out into mid and longer term enterprise work that ties a bunch of things together, especially if there's things that parallel or mirror each other. A lot of my stuff will see ground element items that affect Marines and also affect Army. That's pretty common. So there's always usually a way to kind of join the two together in a story that makes sense for both services, kind of find some common ground, but also find differences too, kind of like where they're going different directions on something. And that can fall into everything from personnel to deployments to units to gear to strategy, things that come in through Congress with those types of things that come from the personnel side. So it's kind of a typical day would be just checking all my email, checking all my competitors, checking in real quick with Phil and Kyle and my two editor bosses, Andrea and Kent on the Army and Marine Corps time side, and just seeing what they got for me. Here's what I'm thinking about working on, or here's what I've got going in the pipeline, and just kind of going off it. That's a kind of a day to day. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question that I didn't ask the other guys. I'm going to ask here and the other guys can chime in, but, and I should have asked this. You've been out for a while, but were you able to leverage any of your military or your government contacts to help you in your news reporting even now? Or is it just kind of, can you talk about that?
Well, I can answer like I got a two-part answer. So I was, by the time I got here and was a full-time dedicated, military reporter here 4 years ago. I mean, at that point, I had been out since 2003. So I'd been out for 14 years, I think. Yeah, if my math's right. So I didn't have any, I had no inside track on that. All the guys I knew were either had gotten out or retired or, just lost touch with. As far as having a military experience, so just kind of an odd note, it actually, weirdly enough, being a prior service Marine veteran, in many cases worked against me with the Marine Corps, but worked for me with the other services. Like I would go on, to a press conference, or I would go on like a tour or visit to a base, run to go to see some soldiers at Fort Bragg or Benning or whatever. And as soon as they found out, oh, you're Marine, you're Iraq vet, oh, you get it, you understand. We could kind of like speak the same language. But Marines just, and I'm as a prior service Marine, I'll say this, just hate the media mostly. So, so they kind of see me almost as a traitor, like, oh, you went to the dark side, So you kind of got to convince them and pull them back. Hey, buddy, like I was in your boots like just a few years ago. Just chill out, let's like, I mean, all in good fun. I mean, it was nothing like nothing real nasty or anything. But yeah, so no, I didn't really have much on that end. I had covered some local. I worked at a bunch of local outlets in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, a little bit North Carolina, and a bunch up in like New Jersey area. So I covered a lot of guard units, things like that, but nothing to the extent like Howard did. Howard developed a portfolio of contacts with SOCOM down there in Tampa. I didn't have that opportunity. None of the places I worked before were near a major military command, mostly just guard and reserve stuff. So.
Okay, that makes sense. And I kind of thought maybe you had some distance and it might not impact you. But what about as much as maybe Kyle or Phil? What about you, Kyle?
As far as building contacts,
Or you reaching back, like leveraging your military and your government contracts or contacts, sorry, from the whatever, the military for your news reporting. Have you been
yeah,
able to?
I mean, there's, you know, especially with some of the people I served with in Afghanistan, I think it's been helpful. Every now and then I have conversations with them frequently, but it's more of like off the record and they might inform me a little bit, but I tend not to use any of them as sources, mostly because I haven't really found a situation where I needed to. But, you know, also I may find that I'm not comfortable doing that with them. But, you know, honestly, like a lot of the, like, as far as like sourcing and finding people to talk to about a subject, I mean, we get tips sometimes, and that's pretty helpful. Doing call outs is another thing that I've done. And then, you know, just getting outside of like the PAO public affairs bubble and like, you know, filing FOIA requests and getting documents, you know, that's a really great, not primary source, but pretty close to it. You know, so I haven't really had to lean on like any contacts I made in the military. And frankly, like, you know, to be perfectly honest, I think that if I had asked like a lot of them, I probably would burn those contacts more than anything. I don't think a lot of them want to, you know, be sources for the media. It's a fairly tight-knit community. And, you know, I want to be respectful of that. But at the same time, if they have information that they want to come forward with, I absolutely want to hear it. And I want to dig into stuff, but I also don't want to like violate like a, you know, friendship. There's probably an ethical issue there too. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. That makes total sense. But I wanted to ask, what about you, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think a total of like 2 people that I was like decently close with in the military actually re-enlisted. So I don't have very many sources that are, you know, still in. I think like Kyle, like I've talked to them a couple times, but it's never like, hey, I need a source on this. It's mostly just like, you know, like one, you know, may have an expertise on something that's like, you know, something specific, and it's just like, hey, you know, how does this truck work or something along that lines. Like that's like the most I've ever talked to them about anything really. But yeah, it hasn't been super helpful. Yeah. And I think, you know, as Todd was saying, like, yeah, it's that the Marines are very distrustful of, I think, anyone outside of the active duty Marine Corps. It's just, you know, come and try to talk to them with as a member of the media, there's an initial distrust unless they, you know, have something that they want to bring to you specifically. So it's always difficult to kind of break into those groups. But, you know, like I said earlier, it's just, you know, with social media, it is easier now than it used to be. You know, they have, you know, veteran Facebook groups. They have you know, they're all on, you know, a lot of people are on Twitter. A lot of people are on, you know, Instagram. A lot of people are on, you know, just about anything. So it's just, you know, working there, figuring out who's willing to talk. But yeah, like I said, I only know 2 people who are still actually in the Marine Corps and that haven't used any of them for anything other than just like a quick like technical question here and there.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is a question from me just because, have you noticed, so I don't think it's a secret that the media is taking a kick in the teeth with regards to which lie is the truth. We don't know anymore. I mean, you constantly hear this, right? Like that it's inaccurate or whatever. Do you think being a prior service member helps with that? Like people are like, oh, it's a service member. He's a service member. I think there's more trust or what have you, or does it have anything to do with anything? And any of you can answer this, and even the members that are dialed in.
I mean, I think if you read our Facebook comments on any of our story, I mean, I don't think that doesn't make that big of a difference. I would say
They more think that you're, like you said, or maybe Todd said that you're a traitor or whatever.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's just kind of the same sort of stuff where, like, if we're saying something they agree with, we're accurate news. And if we're saying something they don't agree with, we're, you know, far left liberal media or whatever. You know, I mean, that's been my experience. But I mean, I think that's just kind of the state of news right now in general. I don't think we're exceptions or any one way or the other.
Interesting. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna go back to Todd. Thanks, Phil, and Kyle. So Todd, we're really trying to give some tips from fellas like you, fellas, because there's no ladies on the line, the speakers today. But you know, our membership, they need jobs, they need to interview, they need to. Can you give tips on? And I've asked each of the other three tips on doing the right thing and don't do this. If you were interviewing, new folks coming in.
I don't know. I would kind of filter most of what I'm going to say to Howard, because he's he's in a position to actually look to someone who would be looking at people to hire and what they're be looking for in their resume. I came through right after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to undergrad, and I just kind of followed the traditional track of what they told me to do. Work at your student paper, do the internships, and go work at a small paper and work your way up. And I don't regret that. Like, it was an amazing experience. I saw and did some really cool things on a local level that I would never trade. But if you're specific to military reporting, I would not go that route necessarily now. Things have changed so much in the last 10 or 15 years that, guys like Phil and Kyle, you're coming out with, veteran experience, you're recently coming out of college, they're, just really good writers and really, good reporters, can leapfrog that pretty quickly and get into these circles. And that's where I think the military experience does help. If you do have if you are a recent veteran, it's not going to get you necessarily hired, over somebody who's more qualified, but it definitely gets you hired over somebody of equal qualifications, I think. And you can get into these rooms and you can be at the Pentagon within a year or two of graduating, reporting on really big issues, where I'm not sure that was true 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure they would have expected you to have done the other kind of route stuff. And while I value the fundamentals and the foundation I got at a local level, it would kind of slow you down now. And unfortunately, that ecosystem is just so drained that it'd be hard to even get a job there and survive. So I would say, I don't know. I mean, if you're not near a base, come to DC, like, if you can, being in the circles. I think it's such a weird, I keep using that term, ecosystem, but like, it's so different, having spent the majority of my career outside of the DC kind of beltway bubble and coming into the bubble. I feel like I have a good perspective of having worked outside of it, but at the same time, like, it's a whole different world here in good ways and bad. Like, bad ways because there can be an echo chamber on like news and what's covered and kind of the crowd mentality. You have to combat that on the reporting side, but on the career side, like, there's a lot of opportunities. I think if you're dedicated to national security defense writing and you can work hard and you can get your foot in the door, I mean, you can go kind of anywhere here in this town. Like, this is the
So
center,
much opportunity.
this is the epicenter for that.
And the networking that goes on.
Yeah. And
We kind of touched on that too. How, because of the pandemic, it's really hard to have those drive-by conversations and the networking and the different things. You guys are siloed off now. And how can you comment on that? And then I have actually a question from Alex, but that I don't want to lose sight of. But what's your thoughts on that? Just
you mean networking in terms of like getting into DC, or like networking once you're here, or?
It could, I guess I should start with once you're here. Let's just, like, how has it impacted the culture and your work environment? Just you're working from home or wherever.
Oh yeah, I've really, like, I could be honest, I'll vent here. I'm struggling with it. It's tough. I'm at a year now sitting in my basement, and we don't get, like, nobody really gets, unless you're at the Times or the Post, nobody gets really travel opportunities anymore, period. But like, we don't, even just, I would dip down to Quantico whenever I could. I'd go over to Fort Belvoir. I'd go under the Pentagon as much as possible. I'd go to just random, 7:00 at night, like, readings at the AUSA, just to see if I could get a card from a colonel or something that might come in handy later, kind of using that old school kind of local reporting type of approach, where you just kind of always just be there. Like, I was a courts reporter for years, and I literally just, my goal was to become like a piece of furniture in the courthouse. Like, you just saw Todd, he was just normally there. And so I would just find out everything. It's a little different in DC, but the same rules do somewhat apply. So as far as COVID pandemic, yeah, hitting a year now, being in the basement, it's, you can find out things in press releases, you can go on social media, you can kind of, plumb your network and call people, but it's not the same as kind of just bumping into people and going to conferences, as boring as they can be. You
have those conversations.
You can find that one little tidbit that kind of like strikes, sparks some interest or curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. I want to make sure I get Alex. So this one's geared towards Phil or Kyle. What is your battle rhythm like in terms of how many stories are you producing each week? I guess you can go, Kyle, and then we'll go to Phil.
So each week it can fluctuate. Right now, probably 5 to 6. And then, the length of those fluctuates as well, unfortunately. Like, so there's not really like a set target that I have or anything like that. It's mainly just following the news and, making sure I'm not missing stuff. Some of those are like spot news things that, maybe like a soldier dies somewhere and it's really just a bare bones story with 300 words or so. But then, I'd say the majority of them are probably like 700, 800 words. And then every now and then, like a longer one, every few weeks or so, that's like either a cover story worth or just like a very fleshed out original reporting story.
Yeah, I would say I'm very much in the same boat. It's a 5 to 6, 5 to 7 is probably, especially nowadays, what I'm pushing out. Again, 300 words to 1,000 words are probably most of my stories. Every so often I have 1,500, 2,000 word story for something really big happens, or just a long investigation that I pulled off. Yeah, I mean, I think another thing, I think pre-COVID I think we were all kind of pushing out a little bit more stuff. I think part of that is just the military slowed down itself with COVID stuff. So there's less events, there's less everything. There's only so much trouble Marines can get into when they're in quarantine. So probably a little bit more once things go back to a little normal, but I think 5+ is about what I'm doing.
Awesome. Let's see. I have another question. Jen's had questions. I'm not supposed to have the questions. But I have reached the end of the questions from the members. But so the four of you, Howard, Kyle, Phil, and Todd, do you take on, do you mentor other veterans that like the fellas, there's mostly guys in here that they're dialed in here, they're listening to you, they're like, how do I do this? What do I do? Do you do personal mentorship? And any of you can chime in.
I'll start because I run the internship program. So that's probably, for me, the closest thing was, I work with people who are starting out often. And it's a lot of, it depends on, some people hit the ground running, some people don't. But I try to, impart some of the experience I've had over the years to, folks who are just starting out and or some guidance. And, my phone is available, 24/7. I get on station at 6 a.m. I'm, work till 8, whatever. So I'm always willing to talk to people. My dad was a teacher. I really enjoy that. I coached a number of sports. Really enjoyed that, working with people. So, I try to take every opportunity I can do that.
I've not done like direct mentoring other than just like newsroom colleagues, like, people new to the newsroom. And I've done that at like other, even at local papers when I was only a few years into business. I was still a couple years older than some of the younger reporters who were coming in. So just try to like, kind of here's what I would look at in terms of story mix, or kind of here's what you should be asking your editor in terms of like trying to develop and improve your beat. As far as, folks, I mean, I'm open to, an email or a phone call from people just interested in, I don't know how much, I can share, but I mean, my experience is kind of unique, but I'd be happy to answer questions or someone just wanted to ping me at some point. I mean, no problem at all.
Nothing like Jen putting people on the spot here, but I do think it's invaluable that the experiences that all four of you have had and the service, you have, generally most of you have servants' hearts and want to continue giving back. And, the guys and gals that are coming down the pipe, they want to hear what you have to say and how you navigated through things, and they're going to do their own thing, but it always helps them to bounce things off someone that understands that we're also veterans and then have gone into some random career that they wouldn't have thought that they would have went into. You understand, right? So, and MVJ does have a mentor program, so it's more structured, but I just wanted to ask because I think there's a lot of this that is coming out that Jen is not going to be able to connect here right now, but maybe later the members can maybe connect with you all in the way that you want to be connected and ask questions and what have you. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. It helps out a lot. But I think I'm at the end of the questions. If anybody else, and if you have things that you come up, you think about later, just let us know. We'll make sure that we get the questions answered. That's why we're here. We're dedicated to doing this, and we're committed to serving veterans. And like I said at the beginning, I just really do feel like journalism is super, super important, and super important actually. And I've committed to helping with this and supporting this cause. So I will make sure that gets done. All you got to do is just ping me. I'm all over the place in the military world and then with MVJ. So happy to help anytime. And I do know Howard does take texts anytime because I am one of them that does that to him. So
Happy to.
yeah.
Kyle brought up a really good point about service. Like I see this journalism as a life of service, trying to shine light on issues and light shining on things that have changed over the years as a result of work that's been done. So it's a passion, and you got to really have it as a passion because it's not easy to get into. It's not easy to stay in. As everybody knows, it's been some really tough times. As my colleagues know, it's been very difficult. And they're all still doing good work, still here. So.
Wow. Well, great. Thank you guys. This is our first one. So I actually might put a survey out just to let you know, or let me know what I need to do better and to stop doing, because there are things that I need to stop doing, and how we can improve, because we want to do that for the membership and for you all too, that showed up to, to serve even more, even tonight. So I'm always grateful to you all, and I'm here to help out wherever I can. Contacts, if I have them, I will. If I don't, I may know somebody that does, so never hesitate to reach out. I'm always here to help. So I think that's it, unless Zach's going to be like, you didn't do it long enough. He's going to get after me. But I feel like I've covered everything, and there's opportunity always to circle back if I didn't, and we have follow-on questions.
We welcome Joseph aboard. He's coming aboard in
What's that?
When Joseph's coming aboard. He's our intern, right? You know what to talk about that.
Yeah,
And
you want
I'll
to talk
take a look
about
at-
HR?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. No, I appreciate it. I shut up. It was great. I thought this was an excellent event. I just kind of want to.
You snuck
Show
in.
up. Yeah,
Thank you, Howard.
yeah. So no, I appreciate it, and really appreciate everybody's time, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, great.
If anybody's interested, send me an email with resume clips. Happy to take a look at it, and we'll talk. Alex, definitely. Will, Terry, if you guys are interested in, just hit me up. We've kind of filled up the sort of paid internship. I hate to have people work for nothing, but I leave it as a caveat. If you're interested, if you have the passion, it really is a good experience. Like I said, we've had some people really jump off and do some great stuff. It's not, it's not getting me coffee. I get my own coffee.
Nice.
Yeah.
We do have fellowships
Don't get
opening up.
stories.
We have 6 coming up. April 1, they will be opening. So be looking out for that. We're closing out on, the committee is about to close out on the application process. So make sure you guys be looking out. I will be sending and my staff at JPG will be sending communications. We want to make sure that you know what's going on, and so that you have all the opportunities in the world. And I've actually saw some of this stuff that I'm going to reach out to you individually. I think it was Alex and Will and who else? Terry too, I think. Yeah, Terry. So I'll just circle back with you guys in the next few days. Okay, you guys have been awesome. Never hesitate to reach out. And thanks to the speakers. I am so grateful, because sometimes people just cancel on me, and I know why, because they get me talking about this stuff. So I am very grateful to you guys for showing up, your service prior, military service, and then your continued service. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Take
all.
care and have a great night, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.